How's it going, everyone? It's your boy Gage, and today I'm excited to show off the Reshiram and Charizard GX deck profile that I created for you. If you are a fan of this type of content, please feel free to like and subscribe. It'll mean a lot to me. And I'm just going to go ahead and hop right into the deck profile, so I'm just that excited. First and foremost, the Big Daddy himself, 3 Reshiram and Charizard GX. Look at how beautiful this card is. I am such a huge fan of the full art cards, and being able to see 2 majestic Pokemon like this front and center, it's just so cool. So, Reshiram and Charizard GX is the center of the deck. For 2 energy, you can do Outrage, which does 30 damage, plus 10 more damage for each damage counter on him. So if a Zacian knocks into you and does 230 damage to you, you are going to be able to use for just 2 energy Outrage, which will do 260 damage back to that Zacian, which is ridiculous. It's like a revenge attack. So I love that about him, because no matter what, even if he does take damage, you essentially gain a benefit off of it, and I really like that. You also have Flare Strike, which for 4 energy, you're doing 230 damage. You can't use Flare Strike the following turn. However, if you are able to get 2 Reshiram and Charizard GXs set up with enough energy, you could swing for 230, retreat into your other one, and just attack with Flare Strike on the second Reshiram and Charizard GX, therefore bypassing the restriction that you can't use that attack the following turn, which is pretty insane. Double Blaze GX is also nothing to scoff at either. For 3 fire energy, you are doing 200 damage, which for most metal Pokemon, you're knocking them out instantly. And yeah, people have to be afraid of this card. Now, the biggest downside is the high energy cost, but that is offset with some of the supporter cards that we are playing in the deck. So, 3 Reshiram and Charizard GX, an absolute must. And, of course, we are playing 1 Charizard and Braixen GX. This card is either really good if you're setting them up first or in the late game. For 4 fire energy, you are going to be able to do the Brilliant Flare attack, which does 180 damage, which is pretty decent, but it can search your deck for up to any 3 cards and put them into your hand, which is insane, by the way. I mean, that most cards that allow you to search off an attack usually restrict you in some way. The thing is that Charizard and Braixen can add anything. If you want an energy, if you want a stadium, if you want a supporter, if you want a Pokemon, you can grab it off of his attack, and that's insane. We are also looking at the GX attack, the Crimson Flame Pillar, which for 1 energy allows you to attach 5 basic energy cards from your discard pile and attach them to any of your Pokemon, including himself, in any way that you like. That's wild. Late in the game, if you realize that you're burning through a lot of your energy, you could just bring him out, use his GX attack, and then fully load all of your Pokemon with the energy that you need. It's pretty bonkers, I'm not gonna lie. Every time I pull off this ability, it feels unfair, and that's exactly why you want to play at least one of him. If you have 2 energy while you're doing the GX attack, it also burns and confuses your opponent's active Pokemon, which can put them in a tight spot if they are not prepared for it. So I love teching 1 copy of this. It actually works really well. And now for the supporter Pokemon, we are looking at 4 copies of Volcanion. This card is honestly what helps you to set up your big Pokemon. With the Flare Starter attack, with just 1 energy, you could search your deck for an energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. That's pretty decent, but if you go second, you are able to attach 3 energies from the deck onto any of your Pokemon, which helps you accelerate that energy even faster, and Volcanion is just so good at doing that. It also has High Heat Blast, which for 2 energy does 50 damage, and if there's 4 energy in play, it does 60 more damage, which is nothing to scoff at. A lot of the times, I might not even need to go into my Charizards if I could just sit on a Volcanion for as long as possible, and then If it gets knocked out, oh well, I'm only losing one prize. Whereas for the big boys, the big downside of them is that if they get knocked out, you're losing 3 prizes. So you're still doing a decent amount of damage with the high heat blast, and oftentimes you may not even need to go into your big boys if Volcanion can hold it down on his own. And now that's it for the Pokemon. A very low Pokemon count, but it is extremely effective. I am also playing 4 copies of the best supporter in the game, in my opinion, Welder. Welder is insane, allowing you to attach up to 2 energy cards from your hand to one of your Pokemon, and then draw 3 cards. This, in tandem with Giant Hearth, which searches 2 energies from the deck, is an explosive combo, and this is what's going to allow you to get all the energy that you need onto your Charizards. This is also searchable off of cards like Green's Exploration and Pokegear, which we will get into next. Like I mentioned, we are playing 4 copies of Green's Exploration. This is one of the best searchers in the deck, essentially allowing you to search for 2 trainer cards and put them into your hand. So you could search for something like the Welder and the Giant Hearth, which searches your fire energy. And if your opponent doesn't Marnie you the next turn, you're essentially off to the races and you are going to snowball in advantage. Green's Exploration is such a great card because this deck does not play Pokemon with abilities. As you saw, I rounded out my Pokemon. I didn't have Dedennes or Crobats or anything like that because I don't want to have abilities in play and risk this card not being live. So no matter what, this card is always something that's going to be usable. And then I am playing 2 copies of Marnie. Just to be able to have the disruption is very useful. Sometimes you might have a hand which isn't the most usable, in which case shuffle it back, draw 5, and force your opponent to do the same, but draw 4. So I love Marnie, still a great tech card in my opinion. I am, of course, also playing 2 copies of Professor's Research. This deck already does a decent amount of searching. It is able to get a decent amount of advantage on its own. So Research, while a staple 4 of in other decks, I honestly think is not as necessary in this version of this build. So I've been pretty happy with just 2 Professor's Research. And for more supporters, I'm playing 2 Boss's Orders just for the utility. A lot of the times, your opponent, if they see you bring out your Charizard, they're going to retreat, and you do not want that to happen. So you don't want your opponent to be able to hide in the bench, and that's why Boss's Orders will force out your opponent's Pokemon so that you can go for those big knockouts. I'm also playing 2 Mallow and Lana. Letting you switch your Pokemon is pretty switch your Pokemon with 1 in the bench is pretty decent, but by discarding 2 cards, you can heal 120 damage, which is pretty relevant if you want your Charizards to stay alive. So Mallow and Lana, a pretty decent tech. And then I'm also playing 2 copies of Giant Hearth, one of the strongest stadium cards in the game. Being able to discard a card and add 2 fire energies, it sets you up for your Welder plays, and it allows you to just snowball into so much advantage. I don't want to play more than this just because I don't want to brick on them. Not to mention, a lot of people are playing Chaotic Swell, which makes stadium cards null and void, so I really, really don't want to get into a situation where these are essentially dead. And for some items, I am playing pretty standard 4 copies of Quick Ball. The Quick Ball is able to search your deck for pretty much any of your Pokemon, including the Charizard, so no reason not to play 4 copies. And then I'm also playing 4 copies of Pokegear. You really, really want to get into your Welders. That's what's going to help you accelerate your energy in the way you need, and Pokegear helps get you there. Look at the top 7. Add a supporter. A lot of the times you're going to try to thin your deck as much as possible, and if you go for the Pokegear, there is a pretty high probability you're going to add a Welder. And now for some extra items. 3 copies of Switch. If you do sustain too much damage, you can always switch it and retreat back into the bench, and that's pretty much why they are in here, and as well as the Mallow and Lanas. 2 copies of Fire Crystal, pretty cracked card in my opinion. Put 3 Fire Energy cards from the discard pile into your hand. So late game, if you're burning through a lot of resources, you could just go for the Fire Crystal, and hey, now you have a live welder, which, yeah, it's pretty... should be a staple in most fire decks. I'm also playing 2 copies of Tag Call, the best searcher in the deck. Search your deck for up to 2 tag team cards and put them in your hand. And there's no cost, so you don't have to discard a card. It's essentially free. So if you see these cards, it means you're getting at least 2 copies of Charizard and Reshiram and Charizard, or 1 copy of the Reshiram and Charizard and the Charizard and Braixen. So, yep, these are pretty good in my opinion. I'm also playing 2 Crushing Hammer just to make sure that your opponent does not snowball with energies on their Pokemon. So by flipping a coin, if heads, you discard an energy from them. It's pretty strong. Yes, it's a 50-50 chance, but if you manage to land it, you're setting your opponent back essentially an entire turn. And then some just really strong one-ofs. We're talking Energy Spinner, which lets you search your deck for an energy, but if you're going second, you search for 3. Your Ordinary Rod, which helps you recycle Pokemon and energy from the discard pile. And then Tag Switch and Energy Switch, which lets you move around your energies in pretty much any way that you like. And now, lastly, but of course not least in order for the deck to function, 12 copies of Fire Energy, pretty standard. So guys, that is gonna be it for the deck profile. I have been having a lot of fun with this deck ever since the League Battle decks came out, and you get most of the cards that you see in this deck profile. I just did a little bit of tweaking with some cards that I had on my own. Some other cards that you can play, of course you can play a 4th copy of Reshiram and Charizard or a 2nd Charizard and Braixen, just to be able to help with the consistency a little bit. If you don't have to search it, that's pretty good if you could just get it into your opening hand. Plus, if you play a 4th one, that means the possibility of any of them being prized is pretty low. Even if you do get one of them prized, you still have access to multiples. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with it. Please like and subscribe, comment your favorite Pokemon. I'm definitely interested to know which ones. And yeah, till next time, take care.